this is my first love besides origami, or watercolor is my first love. And I just love doing these leaves lately because they're very relaxing. And I'm loving to do these with the Niji watercolors. And I've just kind of found a really fun thing, and I have to share these watercolor pencils, our Niji watercolor pencils. These are 36 colors. They're very, kind of a student grade pencil, but they're fantastic for this. And I'm going to share with you my little discovery here. And I know what you're going to ask. You're going to ask me, how did I get these pencils so long? See how long they are? Now, I like that the leads are long, and let me explain that right away because I know you want to know. Because I'm sure when I saw the first long lead pencil, I had to find out. And of course, I had to buy it. So anyway, let me just show you real quick. Let me get it out of the way because I know you're going to want to buy one. And it's called an AFMAT. They have an electrical version and a handheld one. I bought the electrical. I think I would have bought the handheld because the electrical is a little bit, all wonky. I think a handheld will be better, so I'll probably end up buying that as well. But what it does is it makes these incredibly long things. They don't grind down the pencil so much. It just grinds down the wood, and it leaves a lot of space for the lead. This is a watercolor pencil, and the reason I'm bringing this out is because I had so much fun making leaves with these pencils, and I'm going to show you how I did them. But having this long lead allows me to have more contact with the brush, in more contact with the pigment, which is really fabulous if you want to do watercolor with watercolor pencils. So if you're a watercolor pencil hoarder like me, you're going to want to have that. You're going to want to have that pencil sharpener. Now I'm going to tell you, I did use these, and I also used some fancy ones, really fancy watercolor pencils. And guess what? I like the way the leaves turned out. It's much better. This is with my set here with the Niji set. These are the ones I made with the Niji set, and then these are the ones I made with the fancy watercolors, the fancy watercolor pencils. They were like $2 or more than $2 each, and it was a little harder to control. And I found these much more satisfying. So I just wanted to make that out, point that out. So you don't need fancy, expensive stuff to make it work. So I'm going to just start out with what I'm going to use today. And if you're painting, please paint with whatever you've got. It's so nice to see everybody. Yay, this is going to be fun. So what I have here now, if you are a person who loves watercolor but sometimes have trouble with it, because there's a lot of variables about watercolor that we can spend days talking about, but these two watercolor pads. Okay, so you need three things that are important. You need a good piece of paper, you need some good watercolors, and you need a decent brush. I don't think your brush is as important as your paper and your color. Papers will vary in price. You've got all kinds of brands. I'll have to admit, I do have all brands, pretty much. I don't think I don't have. Well, I mean, I've got them all, from the most expensive watercolor paper down to the cheaper stuff. You're going to find your experience with watercolor is going to be much different with a really good cotton watercolor paper. These right here are amazing. They're only 5x7, so I like the small size because I like to do small little things, like a little postcard size. I'd like to just spend a few minutes a day working on something. I don't want, if I have a big piece of paper, I get a little nervous anyway. So it's something nice to have a small piece of paper. I'm going to just start. We've got two different kinds. We have a cold press and a rough. The cold press and the rough, cold press and hot press. This hot press is not as slick, smooth as some of the other fancy brands. I like it because it's got a little tooth to it, a little bit better than, let's say, an Arches hot press, which is really smooth. This one has a little tooth, and I like it. It has a little texture. I'm liking this for doing a lot of doodles over my things, because when I doodle over it, I use like a pen, and it doesn't make, it's so rough that I can't draw. So I'm going to be using the hot press today, but also cold press, if you happen to have it, is fine too. Even if you have rough, that's fine too. But I'm just going to kind of bring out, going to talk about swatching whatever watercolors you do own. You can get to know your watercolors really well just by making leaves. And I'm going to kind of talk about my favorite brushes, but I also just discovered today, because I sort of ignore my inexpensive, this is one of the most inexpensive brushes you could buy. Well, besides the Fusion brush, now that's very inexpensive. But this is a natural hair brush, the SW series. This happens to be the largest one. There's also, they come in small sizes. These SWs, this is the 2.0 and this is the 6. Well, these are fantastic for doing leaves because it gives me a much looser, you'll see what I mean. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to use some tools that I would normally use in my sumi painting, and I'm going to go ahead and try it. I think you probably are going to enjoy bringing out if you have a bamboo brush, you're going to probably want to bring those out too. So before I had this out for a reason, and I forgot why I wanted it to have it out. But if you have this pad, you might find that the binding is really super pretty sticky. And sometimes when you try to tear off this by itself, it's such a strong bind, it's really difficult to get it off. So I like to use this little bone folder, and that actually, for the bamboo, what it does is it makes it for a very nice lift off of this paper without warping the paper. So a little shout out to our bamboo folder tool. It's awesome for doing removing your paper without tearing the paper. So that goes for also those pads that you have mounted on all sides. Get one of these. And Judy could type in what it is. It's just really nice. Okay, let me get to the painting because I know that's what you want to do today. Now, I'm going to show you, let's see, I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to start with the studio set because it has all these gorgeous colors. And, oh, I love it. So Dana says she's obsessed with her new Fusion brushes. Yes, yes, they're awesome. Now, if you use them a lot, I'm going to give you a tip. If you use them a lot, or what I did the other day is I actually messed up my Fusion brush, and I don't know which one I messed up now because I fixed it, but how I fixed it. So let's say you mess up the tip and it gets a little wonky, like it gets a little, like maybe you put it in a thing and it gets a little curve. I actually boiled some water, put the boiling water into a glass cup, and then I put my brush tip into the glass cup and let it just maybe 10-15 seconds. I let it out, and then I gently pointed the brush, and I got I repointed the brush. So you can do that because it's a synthetic hair brush. So just wanted to let you know, if you do, here it is. This is the one I messed up. So this one was earlier today. It had a really bad, the hairs had been bent, and I straightened it out by doing that. So one going, you can fix them if they do get wonky. So let me get my little colors out, and I've got my paper, and there's so many colors here to choose from, but I'm not going to, I'll talk about swatching in this way. Instead of just swatching one color at a time, I'm going to take colors and just see how they act. Now, you can make it a more relaxing experience. If you want to, you can write down which colors you use so you'll remember which colors do whatever they do. Because watercolor is incredible the way it works. And I'm going to just, hopefully I'm going to drop this down just a little closer to my table so you can see a little better. Maybe you won't see the color mixing so much, but you will see I'm hoping that's clear enough. Now I'm going to take out my Fusion number 4, just as a basic. It's a good size. Of course, when I do that, I bring my, I'm going to have to bring my camera up. Sorry about that. There's another, what is my hip going to hit it's going to hit the camera, or the tip is going to hit the camera. So I've got a thing of fresh water, and I'm going to take some yellow. I'm going to mix a little bit of the bright yellow, which is the gamboge hue. I'm going to put it here. I've got some gamboge hue, and that's just plain straight yellow. It's a very bright yellow, very transparent. I'm going to give it, that's not gamboge hue. What am I talking about? That one is lemon yellow. It's this color right here. It's a very bright yellow. And then I'm going to mix it with the Gamboge here's, which is the color next to it. I'm going to put it right next to it. And they're both very nice yellows. One of them more like a kind of a cool yellow, and the other one's a warm yellow, if there is such a thing as a cool yellow. All right, so I've got my brush loaded up nicely with the yellow, and I'm going to take my leaf. I'm not going to make the stem yet. I'm just going to make the body of the leaf, and I'm just going to do it kind of taking my brush belly, laying it down, and I'm going to kind of twist it, and I'm kind of closing this up a little bit, and I'm going to kind of leave it, get the tip right there. You can, I think you can see that. Hope you can. Now I'm going to take this cadmium orange hue, loading my brush with it, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to bring a nice bright, I'm just kind of bringing the belly of the brush and making it come up to meet this. I hope you can see that okay. Now this is just a very basic stroke. One side will be yellow, the other's orange, and then I'll let those two kind of blend together. I didn't leave much room for a stem here, but that's okay. I'm going to take my other fusion brush, my little 2, the one that I fixed earlier, and I'm going to load it with well, maybe some mauve, just to try to see what the mauve does when it mixes with the orange and the yellow. And I'm going to make a stem. So I'm just going to make my stem starting right here, and I'm going to kind of go into the base. And then I'm not going to bring it, I could bring it up. Let me just try. It's not, it's kind of blurring, but that's okay. My tendency, we have a tendency, I know I do, to want to just blend it and see, we want to do it with our brush. But really, the best thing to do is to let your colors do that. Let them do it. As long as you have enough water in your, I'm going to put a little gray, just so you know, I'm putting some Payne's gray. As long as you have enough water to kind of let the colors move around, and if it's not too concentrated, it's going to do what it's going to do. And you'll notice some colors spread, some of them sort of, I guess I want to call it like colors. Some colors are passive and some are aggressive. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's probably a better word. Some pigments are really that like to push other pigments out of the way, and some, they dance together that way. So maybe, one is the more aggressive and one is the more passive, whatever, however we want to label that. Let it sit, and that's the thing about watercolor too. Patience. This is not going to look anything like this when it dries. So I'm going to let that go. I'm not going to play with that anymore. I'm just going to let that dry, and I'm going to turn my paper so that I can have a leaf going in a different direction. So here's what I'm going to take as a brush. This is a Wafude brush. The Wafude, it's the WF1, and I like this one too. It's got its natural hair, and this one's going to be really interesting how it's going to make a different kind of leaf just by doing the same.
Kitty said that they call them bully colors.
All right, Kitty, that's funny. They're bullies. Well, I was going to say, like, yeah, they're just a little bit more pushy, pushy colors. They get in line first. But that's what the beauty of watercolor is. It's just watercolor has its own dance, and if you just go with it and make sure that you have plenty of water. That's like water is your friend. I found when I was first painting with watercolors, I kept putting on so much pigment, and it was just not, you couldn't see the paper underneath. It was just really heavy, and really just it's really the watercolor is the water in color second. So I'm loading my brush up, and I've got it pretty wet. This is my Wafude brush, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing where I'm not going to make a stem yet. I'm just going to lay down the brush, and I'm going to kind of, now I can see it's so separate. So I'm just going to lay it, and then I'm going to twist it. I'm going to kind of twist it, and then let it go into a nice little fine line. You see how I just did that? And now I want to shape the leaf a little bit. So I can't do that while it's still wet. So I just made one half of it right there. Now I'm going to take some of that yellow that I had, and we'll see what that purple and yellow do. And I'm going to take my brush loaded with the yellow, and I'm going to bring it around, and I'm just going to kind of drag it, and then kind of come to that point. Now look at the shape. I love that natural shape. I didn't really have to work really hard to get that with this brush. Now I'm going to take my Payne's Gray, I'm gonna mix, oops, that's not gray, I don't know what that is. Oh, that is, you know, I must have mixed those colors up, because that's not the color that it says it is. Oh, whatever. Maybe it says it's an indigo, but I think that's a different color. It's all right. I'm gonna put it, I'm gonna make a stem. I'm just gonna go into the base only. And I'm gonna tap that, just tapping it. I'm not brushing it. I'm tapping that color and I'm gonna let it push its way through. And this one is kind of pushing its way through. It's a little saturated, like you can see, I could kind of push, it's actually too much water really, but that's okay. I can actually kind of make it to my advantage. Just take the, take the paper and move it around. Now, if I find that there's way too much water and it's just gonna be like kind of too puddly, I can take my brush and use it as a siphon or a little straw. I'm going to gently siphon out a little bit of this. I'm not overdoing it, but I'm letting that natural hair just kind of sort of drink up a little bit of that paint without overdoing it. I'm not working the watercolor paper. I'm actually just letting, just touching the top. And that's how you can control some of your washes. Like, let's say, you have so much water, but that's just bleeding everywhere. This is a way to control it without working the paper and overdoing it. So this leaf I'm loving a lot already, and of course it's going to look so much different when it dries. And I'm going to try one with a different brush. This is the big SW6. It's a big brush. When you're working with brushes that they're big and you have a half pan, it's a little bit rough to fill, it's hard to fill a half pan, with that big brush. So best way to do this is spritz your paint down first so that you get enough pigment dissolved and wait a few seconds and then wet your brush. And really with these natural hair brushes, when you first get them, I'm going to tell you, sometimes, and it's natural to shed just like people do, you're going to get some shedding. And I always do this when I first, well, anytime just before I start my work, I kind of pull on it a little bit just to get a few of the hairs that might have loosened up. And almost every Asian brush you would get, whether it be really expensive or not, should come to practically a one hair point. And that's what makes them so special. So I'm just loading this up. Now I'm going to take some color. Let's see, what do I want? I'm going to take some of this. Oh, this is the quinacridone gold, one of my favorite colors. And I'm going to just pick it up and put it in my tray. And I'm going to take maybe some of this burnt sienna that's right next to it, putting it next to it. And then I have a third color I'm going to pull, and that's the burnt umber. And just make a little puddle here. This is for one leaf. So my last color is dark, so I'm going to go ahead and make that kind of the base of my leaf. This time I'm going to try to make a stem and see what I can get. So here I'm going to start with a stem. Nope, it's too loaded. I have to I can tell it's going to just make a big puddle. So I'm kind of taking some of that water out. I had too much. And I'm going to just do a little, like a stem. Start a stem. There it is. I've made a very light stem. And I'm going to load this with a lot more color. And I'm just going to lay this brush down. And I'm going to kind of twist it until it comes to a point. And then I'm just going to add some color to this, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to build my leaf, and you can kind of see what happens here. I'm making a very loose leaf that I would not make with another brush. There, just made the end of the stem a little bit bigger, and I could add a little bit of this brown color that I have. Just drop it in, let it push its way wherever it's going to go. I'm going to add a little of this. I think this is mauve. Yes. I'm just going to drop a little bit in little drops and just kind of let that be. Again, I had so much water in this because these do drink up water. Now I'm going to take some of that and I'm going to just sort of drink it up a little without upsetting what I just did, but just a little. And see, I'm kind of just stopping it up a little, but I don't want to control what's going on so much because it's going to look so much different when it dries. Just going to give it, let that do its thing. And see what's already happened with this one. It's dry. And look at the subtle change between that purple and then goes into the orange. And this one, that lovely luminous violet color, that I guess I pulled violet and that beautiful ochre sort of color. There's a little bit of some hair here, in that beautiful Payne's gray. But this one, I want to let that sort of sit. Now you notice I'm going to turn. I don't like to keep my paper in the same direction because this gives me a better composition on my paper if I choose to use it as a painting. Right now, I usually just do this as an exercise, but I may cut these out later to do fussy cutting, and then what happens is then I can mount it on a journal, or I could add it to something if I want as a focal point. You can also, but just this by itself, if I were to do this one, maybe partially filled, then I could do a quote here or make a greeting card. I mean, there's so many things you can do with these. So I'm going to turn it around, maybe make a leaf that goes this way. And this time I'm going to make it a lot bigger than the one I made before. So I'm going to take this big brush out. I'm going to take something, since it's fall, I've been doing fall colors, but I'm going to do more of a green one that's a little more on the green side, and maybe add some browns. This is a sap green, and it's a lovely sap green. It's very, very yellow in tone. And in the set, there's a phthalo green and a hooker's green. So you got 3 different greens to choose from. So if you don't like mixing green, you don't need to. They're already here. I'm kind of a weird, I don't like green just straight out of the tube. Or the pan. I like it when I put something with it because naturally, for some reason, I like them more muted. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a big leaf this time. I'm going to try to make something big. I'm going to lay my brush down and I'm just going to take it and then do the same thing, twist it and let it just make a really wonky, fun shape. Now I'll add some quinacridone gold and just drop it in. And I'm seeing some hairs coming out. There we go. And I'm going to let that kind of just merge to do what it's going to do. And I think I can get a nice fine stem out of that if I just go really light. Like go really light here. And then I could drop in some of that Payne's gray. Now this is where I'm going to just take it and I'm going to drop it into the stem while it's still wet and let it push its way up the stem, kind of like how a leaf drinks the water in nature, right? So just kind of I'm just dropping that down only, and I'm not going to try to, push it any farther. I'll let the water do its job. Now this, I'm going to take a different color. Let's see, what can I take? Maybe a turquoise would be pretty. This one is phthalo. Ooh, that's turquoise. Okay, so beautiful. Now this time I'm not going to load up so much paint. Not so much water anyway. And I'm going to just kind of got my brush kind of loaded. And I'm going to take my brush. I'm kind of holding it here, and I'm going to pull some of that color that's already on the base. And I'm just going to drag that. And now see, it's a drier brush, but that's okay because this brush is allowing me to create the shape. It's kind of like a drawing instrument, really. See, I love the organic kind of loose thing that's happening with these. This is only a new thing I've been doing. I try to do this normally with a brush, and it's a little harder. And I'm going to show you what I mean with the fusion brushes. They're just like a traditional watercolor brush. Here I'm just adding a little bit to the tip. While it's still wet, I can kind of reshape it. I like that little wonky edge, so I'm going to leave that. But you can kind of play with it and reshape it if you want. Now I'm going to grab, I have to show you. I can do this similar idea with a very skinny brush. I can do all kinds of things with the skinny brush. So I'm going to take my paper, I'm going to turn it around. Oops, don't want to smear it. I think I'll bring a leaf coming up this way or this way. So many decisions, right? But taking my paper and just rotating it around is really helpful to me anyway, rather than just being stationary. And if you would like to have a little board or something that you could put it on and rotate, that's even better. And I love rotating the paper. Well, I'm going to take some of this turquoise again. No, that's not turquoise. This is Prussian blue, which is gorgeous. It's very nice. I'm going to mix it with some of that green. And I'm going to show you how gorgeous leaves you can make with an SW. So I'm just going to take my little stem. I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to just take it, and I'm going to kind of meander it and then drag it And there we go, like that. And then I'm going to take some of that quinacridone gold that I had, and I'm going to do the same thing. This time I'm just taking and dragging, kind of instead of drag, it's just the way you lay down the belly of the brush, basically. Here, and I got a different shape. And I got a pretty wide area with this brush, pretty fat area. Now I can smooth that out if I want. I don't want to because I like that rough edge, but I could smooth out areas just by kind of dragging the brush while it's still dry. Oh, I'm sorry, while it's still wet. What am I thinking? It's Friday. So I'm adding some dark just to give some accent to the stem, and I can do that while everything is still wet. Now this one, I kind of like the composition, just like this, and I could make some hand lettering, maybe a greeting card, and I'm going to lift off, just like I did here. There's a lot of puddling going on. I'm just going to lift some of that without ruining it. I just want to let it lift off some of the color so it'll dry quicker so you can see. I'm just going to leave that alone. After this is dry, I'll probably come back and do some layering with with either more watercolor, or I can use a pen. I could use a Detail Master pigmented pen, kind of like I do here. So here I did pigment liner, the little black liner, and I added some white. So those were just by swatching the watercolor set. Chris, hi, Chris. And I'm just saying the people, I want to say hi to some people here. Wow. So nice to see everybody. Okay. And of course, right now I'm not seeing any new things, but maybe because you're just enjoying painting. I'm hoping you are. Okay. So let me show you the magic of the watercolor pencil. So using these, I was able to get all kinds of color combinations you can get with this set, just because I haven't talked about this as much. I tend to use my little 12 color set, but the studio set has every color. If you're not really a color mixer and you want some bright, bold colors that you couldn't get with a 12 color set. Let me just kind of explain that. My 12 color set, I call these my little babies because these are little colors that I picked out of how many colors from our manufacturer to get the best color mixing experience. But when you look into the tray, it doesn't look very bright, but the colors are brilliant, and they're great. You've got every color you need to make pretty much any color. But with this set, you've got some bright reds and bright oranges that you probably couldn't get with this. And I'll kind of show you what I mean. So I was going to I'm going to just grab a piece of paper, and this time I'm going to grab some of the full press because it's here, and show you just a little comparison. So I'm going to grab my Fusion. There we go. I'm going to make a really bright red. I'm going to do a leaf because let's practice leaves. If you want to do a leaf, you could just take that brush, start with a really thin line, like the tip of your brush, thin, and then press down. And you can actually make a leaf just by the shape of the brush. You don't even have to manipulate it much. You can make a little skinny leaf, and that's a nice red. And I'm going to kind of fatten it up a little while it's still wet. I'm going to join these a little bit. There you go. That's a nice leaf. Now I'm going to try to make a red. That's just straight red. No mix. I didn't put anything else with it. Now I'm going to try to take, that's the cadmium red hue, which is a nice brilliant red. Now this one is my set. Now it's kind of muddy here. I'm going to have to try to find non-mud because I've got colors mixed with each other. I'm going to mix a magenta. Which one is it? Any of these two will probably work. I want to get a red. A nice, kind of a bright red. So I have to try to do these. These are all single pigment, so they're all transparent. Oops, that's a sienna, and I didn't want that. So it's one of these. I have to remember which one. Oh, if I look at my swatches, I will be able to know. I'm going to use the Permanent Rose or Alizarin Crimson to try to make this. So Permanent Rose is this one here. And I'm going to mix Permanent Rose with the Gamboge Hue, which is, as long as I don't have any green mixed or blue on top. So I'm going to clean that off, make sure it's really clean. And I'm going to mix that with this, and I'll get myself as red as I can get. I'm going to mix it until I get the red I'm looking for. So let me see if I can do that. So I've got it, it's a red color. There we go. It's more orange because I didn't have enough pink in it. But you can see what I mean. It's a mixing. I'm able to get a red. Not as brilliant, but it's looking pretty good. On my end, I can see it's looking good. So this is why I love this set. If I couldn't have anything, I needed to have a small set, this is the one to get because I'm able to get a very nice, brilliant red by mixing those two colors when, here's the cadmium and here's this one. The difference between the cadmium is it's a little bit more opaque, so it's not as mixable. This one I could add a new color to it, and it won't get a muddy color. So I wanted to share with you that. Okay, so let me go on to. I know what I was going to tell you I was going to do is I'm going to show you my colored pencil thing, and you're going to just. I think if you have watercolor pencils with you today, I think you would really enjoy this. So this one. If you have just regular watercolor pencils, it won't work. So you need water soluble pencils. So I've got my little set here of Niji watercolor pencils, and I'm going to just bring out all the colors. And I did sharpen them with my long pencil sharpener thing. And I'm just going to use any brush. I guess I'm going to use any of the brushes here. And I'm going to grab the brown because it's that time of year again. I'm trying to embrace the autumn colors. So this one is the brown. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a leaf, but I'm not going to draw the leaf. I'm going to draw something. You're going to kind of laugh, but here's what I call it. So I'm going to make a little line, kind of wonkish, and then I'm going to make like an upside down umbrella, kind of like, when it rains, the wind blows and your umbrella goes, it goes, it's an upside down umbrella, or if you want to look at it, it's a stick with a skirt. Whatever you want to call it. So this is what I'm making. That's all you need to make. Now, if you want to make some color combinations happen, then maybe add a little fringe to your skirt, or make a fringe to your umbrella. That's easy, right? You're not doing a leaf, you're just creating a little shape here. I can add another color. Now this is a yellow, and I'm just going to add a little more to my fringe. There. So it's like a little V-shaped thing. Now I'm no longer making pencil marks. Hey, I'm going to do this on a few. I'm going to just grab, while I'm at it, you can do these ahead of time. I'm just going to grab some colors and I'm going to make kind of combinations. And I don't have to be really perfect. I can just make fun color combinations with my pencils. And this is something you can do if you don't have, access to water right now and you want to do it later, or you want to just do it all, the water part all at once, or you can do it together. But I just want to show you, these are what you're going to make. Little shapes like this. And you can try different colors. Whatever you got, just try different colors. I'm going to make one go this way. And the looser you do this, the more fun it is. So there's my little umbrella that just flew off it's a windy day. And I'm just going to grab a different color. It's the same color. I'm going to grab a different color here. Maybe it'd be fun to mix colors with this. Actually take some yellow and see what happens with that. This is a really bright yellow. Just putting a little fringe on that skirt. And okay, I've got three of these. So next is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to use the Fusion brush. The reason I'm using it, I like the synthetic tip because I can be a little more aggressive on my paper. I can push the pencil around on my paper. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to just wet that kind of with a base. And I'm going to just drag this up and then I'm going to twist it and bring it to the tip. And look how beautiful this is. And as I do this, these colored pencils, unlike other brands and more expensive brands, I'm finding that these do not stain. They basically don't stain the paper and leave pencil marks. That's the beauty of these Niji watercolor pencils. They're not as pigmented, but in a way, I'm able to get these really subtle, pretty effects. Now, I'm going to show you something that you can do that's really cool. Is you can take your pencil, use it as a paint, just use it as a palette. So you can, that's why I like these long leads. Now I've got much more contact with my brush tip than I did before with a shorter pencil lead. And I can just drop color in like this, just like I am with my watercolors. So if you don't have watercolors handy, or you don't want to bring a tin with you of colors, you can create gorgeous watercolor designs and effects just using colored pencils, watercolor pencils, of course. I'm just going to drop some of that gorgeous, this is like a yummy gold color, which I didn't know. It looks brown on the pencil, but boy, it makes it gorgeous. Kind of a mixture of, I don't know, looks like quinacridone gold to me. This one, wow. I didn't know that. See, I've got to start playing with my watercolors now, or my pencils. I'm going to take also to make texture. It's really fun to make texture while it's wet. When the color is wet, you can make really, you can just tap it. You see that? It's just going in there really nice. Now when it's dry, it's not going to do that as much, but you can get really fun little textures, really wet into wet with the watercolor. So I'm going to clean my brush out, and I'm going to take this one that I did, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to clean out all that yellow, and I'm just going to start by taking my brush, and I'm just wetting it. I'm dissolving the color, and then I'm going to, as I dissolve it, I bring it up to make the leaf shape, up to the end of where I drew that little line. Now this is way less saturated, I see, but I see that it's going to be a very light leaf, or I could add color if I want. I'm learning that, you know, light is really beautiful. Very soft colors are really beautiful in watercolor. And so it's good to just let it happen. But I'm going to just grab a little bit of this turquoise and kind of define that leaf shape just a little bit more with that, so that I have that. And then just kind of, you can put more color in. You can actually spatter. I just spattered by accident this watercolor. I'm actually able to make fun little spatters, which probably easier than splashing the brush around. And there's my tip of my leaf, and then I'm just gonna let it dry. It will look different when it dries, just like your watercolors, same thing. I can, you know, add a little, I wanted to throw a little green here. I can add some, go wet into wet, kind of make a textured center. You can see how fun that is. And then I'll just make little textures, or I can make scribbles just for more of a natural texture. And then really patience is the thing. You'll tend to want to rework it, but really it's best to let it dry and watch the colors do their thing. And this one here, I'll do the same thing. This one, just grabbing that and letting those colors. Wow, this one's a pretty one. It's a very concentrated blue. So this one had a lot more pigment load than the other blue that I used. So you get 36 colors in the set. There, oh, lovely, lovely. And then you get all kinds of color combinations. That one's fun. And then if I wanted to add a little gold, kind of, you know, to make it more green looking, you can just take your yellow, if you want, take it off right off the tip, and then just throw it in there. And now you've got green. You've got a green leaf, and then just let the leaf or the colors just kind of mix on the paper. So just so you can see, as this one has dried, this is the watercolor. Look how gorgeous, just that little natural. Oops, some hair got in that. Oops, should have been more patient. But I'm going to let that wonkiness be there. It's a natural wonkiness. I'll leave it there. But these are really fun with that leaf, or with that. And I'm going to show you the reds. See the mixed red compared to the solid red. Look how brilliant that is. It's not dry yet, so I'm not really turned out nice, that red. Let's see what else we can. So, oh, I know. One thing I wanted to share with you too. I've got 15 minutes, so if you have if you're painting, I wish we could share. We could kind of do a show and tell with what you're doing. But let me show you something that I like doing. I'm going to take my pencil. I think I'm going to just do this with my paint, just so I can get a darker lay down of color. So I've got my regular paints. You can mix these, by the way. You don't have to just use separate. They can be mixed, which I'll show you in a sec here. Just take some green. I'm going to make this a classic green, and maybe I'll throw some turquoise in it. Turquoise is one of my favorite colors. So, I used to love purple, and it's funny how it's shifted to turquoise. I think it's because I've lived in Arizona so long. I just purple was my thing, and I kind of not been using purple lately. But we do change our color choices for some reason over the years, and maybe just with whatever suits you. That's why color is so incredible. So let's see, I'm going to put a little sap green, and I'm going to create like a little stem, and I'm going to just kind of, there we go, very loose leaf thing here. So there's the shape. Now I'm going to give it just a minute. Oh, maybe I'll put a little of this turquoise. Yeah, some turquoise. Just dropping that color in. And I'm getting to know my colors, my palettes. And if you're like me and you have 100 different brands, not 100, but you know, you have lots of brands. Once in a while, grab the brands maybe that you haven't used in a while and play with it. Make some leaves and see what, you know, what you can make and what happens, because really you just get to know them, and then you can have more or less, your relationship with watercolor won't be intimidating. It can just be joyful and fun, and you will get results that are acceptable and that you will like. Okay, so okay, as I am rambling on, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try doing it now. This is a bamboo. You've probably seen these before. Most remember in college we had to get one of these, and I always thought, why? But anyway, it is a bamboo ink pen. So you can make, I think I showed it in my last demo. You can dip this into ink or semi-ink, and you can make, you know, make marks and draw with these. Now, there's a little reservoir here, and a little split. That's where the ink comes through. But there's another end, which I never think about very often. But this end is a solid end, and it's meant for scratching. Sgraffito. It's meant for scratching, and it's kind of a great tool to have in your watercolor stash, in your watercolor tools. And what I mean by that, if I'm going to just show you, is I see I've got, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to take this, I'm going to just make a line. And what it just did is it made a beautiful dark line. What happened is the watercolor went into the paper and it deposited in there and made this gorgeous dark line. I don't know if you see that, but when it dries, it's going to be much more obvious. So I'm going to make, this is where I'm going to make some little veins where it's really fun. I'm just going to scratch in some little kind of the veins from my leaf. And I'm going to just kind of do it like I'm drawing. I'm just very subtle, but I'm just doing this. It's not, you know, I'm just not going very deep at all. I'm just kind of scraping across the watercolor paper. And I'm going to do this on this side. And you can do as detailed or as not detailed as you want, but this is a way to make kind of a more of a realistic looking leaf, because you get these incredible little lines that you could not get with pen or anything like that. You see how nice and fine those are. Now you can thicken that if I go back and I just kind of gently just kind of make small scrapes. Be careful not to scratch too much into your paper. That thickens the line just a little bit, which is kind of what I want right there. You can also do some cross hatching. Now you can't do this while it's dry, it won't work. So you need to do while the watercolor is wet. And this is what happens. This is when this one dried. See how it looks like these little lines that I got, very, very subtle, look like I drew into them with watercolor, but I didn't. I just did it with this little bamboo tool. So I can't wait to see that dry. It'll be fun. And I might make something out of this, maybe a card. I might. Now I see here, I kind of want to explain glazing a little bit. If you don't like a color, and if you keep your watercolors light, you can glaze. It's actually really fun to glaze, and I'll show you an example of what I mean. When I was going through, let's see which one it is. It's one of these. There it is. I made this really light pink. It was made with the cadmium, actually, the cadmium red on the watercolor set here. And I just made a really light pink leaf. And then I thought it was just too pale. So I did a glaze of a ultramarine blue over it, and it made a nice purple shape, or, you know, made a leaf into a shape. So I'm going to kind of do that with this. This isn't completely dry yet. No, I can do it with this. This one, I'm going to do a glaze over it, because that one's dry enough for me to do. So this one I did, I'm not really pleased, you know, it just isn't exciting to me to have that yellow side. I like the orange, it's nice. Well, let's see what happens when we glaze a little transparent blue over it. So I'm going to do a little phthalo blue, which I think is this one, and make sure, kind of a phthalo, yep. Should be a phthalo blue. And I don't want to go too dark. I just want to kind of make it a nice medium color. And I'm going to just see what happens when I glaze over this, because what's going to happen is I know I'm going to get a beautiful green, but this is called glazing. If you just do a light, like layer over another layer, and if you don't, if you're careful to do the glazing with colors that you know will make another color, like the yellow, the blue, and the yellow, I knew would make green. Now, if I put blue over this orange, it's going to cancel out and probably make, we'll find out. It's going to probably make a kind of a, just sort of a brown color. But I think I'm just leave this one like this because I like it. We'll just see what happens when it dries. But there I've changed it dramatically just by a little glaze over that. So, and you can see I'm not doing a lot of, I'm just a very light color. I'm just going to and then it will look a little different when it dries, but I like that leaf a little bit better now. So you can always change. If you find one that you just think, yeah, it's not that exciting, like this one here, I'm not that excited about. So I'm going to try a new color over it. I'm going to try a little bit of this dioxazine purple. I just sort of stay away from purples lately, but I'm going to do a little purple over the green and see what I get. So this was the colored pencil, so I'm going to just do a purple glaze, very light. And this time I'm covering the whole green. I just feel like doing that, just because that green just wasn't working for me. That's why you can control, you can make, your watercolors the way you just keep working with them and you can layer. Now this one kind of is a duller color. That's okay. I'm going to try to do some dimension with it, and I'm going to just drop some of this Payne's gray. I think we know that's indigo. I'm going to drop some indigo in there, and I'll let it just do its thing. Maybe I'll let it just drop there like that. And think about leaves, that's fun. You don't have to make a perfect wash. You can have it all splotchy. The more splotchier, the more natural it looks. It just looks really nice. Leaves are very satisfying. Fun. So I'm wondering how everybody's doing, because it's awfully quiet. Oh, could be that I didn't have my, here we are. I couldn't hear. Hope.
No, we're good. A lot of people are in the comments, but no. Everything you've been doing is awesome. They've just been asking about products and showing how excited they are about the colors you're using and the techniques you're showing.
Oh, Rue. Hi, Rue. I just noticed he's here. So yes, you gotta get, Rue, you have to get this. You're gonna love this. So good to see you. Rue's still here. Hi there. It's nice to see you. So this one I'm gonna love now once it's dry. And I'm noticing a little spreading that I didn't think would happen, but no, that's not spreading. That I just didn't get the brush stroke all the way out. So if I look carefully, oops, I'm gonna get my blue here, or whatever I had gray going here. My purple, that's what it was. Gosh. Okay, so I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to bring that all the way to the edge. It looked like it had bled, but it didn't. It was just, I hadn't brought it all the way to the edge. So you can play, have fun with your watercolors. You don't have to be, like right now I'm being a little bit tight, but okay, I'm starting to get attached to the outcome of this, which I'm not supposed to, so I'm not going to. All right, let that sit. It's going to blend really nice. It's going to be fun. I can leave this alone. I could take these later, doodle on them when they're dry. I could add some lights. This one is great by itself. It looks really nice. So you could do things like this. I just wanted to let you know, because it's getting to it's holiday already, holiday time, and you might want to think of things that you might want to do for gift ideas. Well, this one I was practicing my leaves, and I thought, why not make tags? Gift tags. So I've got little gift tags now already made, but I practice leaves. So this one I just did a combination of one leaf and then a second one. And this one I just did my leaf, and then I made a solid outline, and that's what created, made it all bleed out, which I loved. This one I just you know, they're just little goofy practices, nothing fancy. But I practiced my leaves, and I was also able to purpose these into something I could use. Um, that is one way I like to use them. And then other ones, like I mentioned before, was I put them on like my little focal points, like on a journal. This one was cut out. I did my watercolor, did my doodling, and then I put some microglaze on top. So I know you all know me to bring these out probably every time, but I'm gonna do it again because this one's actually distress glaze. I'm gonna do it again because those of you who were here that may have missed it, these make great sealers for watercolor. So you've got, this is one and the same product. And one is microglaze. It's basically, what is it? It's it's paraffin oils and waxes. And this one's been around for many, many years. Judikins made it for Peggy Skycraft. I believe she's a paper artist up in the Pacific Northwest. And it's called the All-Purpose Paper Protector. It's fantastic for watercolor. So let me show you how I use it. So like this one's done. I could keep this little piece, but I want to protect it because I may cut them out later. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to put some of this microglaze, which is the same thing as distress glaze. Judikins makes it for Ranger. So I'm going to put it on and I'm just going to take my finger and I'm just going to put it over the leaves. And what it does, I'm not putting that much, but just enough to protect my paper. And then, you can get your smudgy little hands all over it and it's not going to ruin them. This is great. I do this for almost all my watercolors when I'm finished, especially if I'm going to use them as focal points, because once you've done that, you've sealed it. And you can also use this on your inkjet prints if you have an inkjet printer and you don't want to buy a laser printer because they're expensive, but you want to have an inkjet that has a waterproof, that it's waterproof. Just do this. Just put them on like this. Give it a moment to dry. And you notice the paint's not moving. It's not smearing. It's not really affecting the finish of this paper. I have a little gloss right now, but let me get my handy dandy paper towel. Of course, it's a little wet, but I'm going to make sure it's not dirty. So I'm going to grab one that's not dirty. You can use a soft cotton rag, shop towel, whatever you got. And then just take it and gently, don't overdo it. But you want to kind of take off that residue. Just a gentle buffing, kind of like, yeah. And then you can it becomes a lot more durable. And you can use it for lots of things. But of course, now I can't paint over it. So once I've done this, you won't be able to paint over it, which, is what it is. You won't be able to do anything over it. It's sealed. So what's very cool though, it's sealed. And now you don't see finish, there's no shine to it. But now I can drop a cup of coffee on that. And Rue, I think you probably, if you're still here, you may, I don't know if you ever drop coffee on your paintings, but you can do that and it will wipe right off. Oh, I was probably tested right now. Let's test it. It's terrible. I'm just going to throw a little paint on there and I'm going to wipe it right off. Oops, I left a little stain. Oh no, but that's no big deal. But anyway, there it is. So I've sealed my picture or my painting, and I can cut these out later. I think that's what I'll do. Yeah, that's another fun thing to do. We do have a brush bamboo combo now, right? That one is available now. I should show you. It's actually, I'm gonna grab it. I hope I still have it. I've got to have it. It's somewhere in my stash. Here it is. Okay. See, this is been around for a long time. It doesn't have the little other point, but I think you could scratch into it. But what I love about it, it has a brush on the other end. So you can do scratching, writing, and painting with it. I wanted to share that before we signed off because you can probably do all that. I'm just going to quickly try it real quick, and then I'll let you all go unless you like hanging around. I'll hang around with you all day. Okay, so here's the brush. It performs very well. And then let's see if I can make a nice scratching into it too. Okay, so there's my leaf. And now I'm going to go ahead and use this side. and create the little lines, which I can, see? So as long as I'm just, yep, gentle, same thing. But it's not as cool as the other one because the other one is writing and scratching on both sides. But you can still do it with this, but you just have to make sure it's clean of ink before you proceed. And I don't think I cleaned mine out. There you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Karen, and thank you, everybody. And please do tag us, tag Karen at Karen Elaine Creative, tag Yasutomo at Yasutomo Art or Yasutomo_art on Instagram. And yeah, we'd love to see if you create anything based on this demo. We'll also have a blog post up where we're going to list out the products that Karen used and link them so it's a little bit easier for you to go back and find the items that she shared today. And so we hope you all have a fun and creative watercolor leaf filled weekend.
Yes, of course. And paint your leaves. You'll find, you can see I've been painting a few. And much of the thing you'll notice is when you're painting, if you're just beginning, please know that the more you do something over and over and over, you're gonna get better at it. It's just, just practice, practice, practice. Do it over and over and over, and you're gonna find it just gets easier and easier. So that's my encouragement for anyone who may have struggled with watercolor. Just keep going, and you don't go to classes and say have critiques because and I hate to say that. I don't believe in critiques. I believe in encouraging, and everybody has to start somewhere. And we just, the more we're encouraged, the better I think we do. And so, yeah, just thought I'd give you that a little bit of old lady advice.
Thank you. That's so true. We stand by that.
All
Thank you, everybody.
right,
And
everybody, have a good weekend.